Hello, everyone, and welcome back. As always, I'm your girl, Candy Washington. And before we dive into today's Kiki, which is going through every detail of the new Vanity Fair bombshell article exposing Bravo and NBC and all of the Housewives, we're going to go through every single detail. But before we do, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share. Woo! All right, Kitty Cans, we are going to get into it. So basically, I'm going to go through the entire article. We'll read it together and we will stop and ask questions and have a fun kiki. Drop your questions and your comments in the chat box. All right. So here we go. A house divided. Inside the Real Housewives reckoning that's rocking Bravo. Amid disturbing allegations, Bethany Frankel's calls for a union and a whole lot of drinking, reality TV's most popular stars are facing their demons. All right, here we go. The housewife woke up in her own urine. She was still drunk from the night before. When she'd had 3 drinks at dinner, another 3 or 4 with her co-stars, then an indeterminate but debilitating amount of mezcal after her castmates went to sleep. The house had been fully stocked when they arrived. She was too hungover to care that she'd wet the bed, and so sick that she couldn't film, she told production. But people on set kept telling her she was fine. It was just the Mexican water screwing up her stomach. The same thing had happened to them in Cartagena, Colombia the year before. The van hired for the day trip pulled over so the housewife could throw up. When the crew saw what was happening, they rushed over, she said, not to help, but to document it. Bravo didn't wind up airing that footage. Production did bring in a doctor who gave the housewife a shot. She pulled down her pants on camera and took it while a castmate held her hand. Dun, 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 dun. Quote, if you go to the whorehouse, you're gonna get effed, said another Real Housewife. She knows what you think, that if you sign up to be on a Bravo reality show, you deserve what you get. And she agrees. If we do this, it's at our own peril. We know that, and we don't effing care. They do it for the money in part, more than $1 million a season for the highest paid cast members. But it's more than that. The second housewife remembers being a little girl and plotting in her diary to achieve public recognition. Quote, I used to dream that one day maybe I'd get to go on Jeopardy, and I would have put that in my obituary, she says. Now, when she dies, she will leave this mortal coil having been a reality star. She's grown accustomed to cruel comments about her body and face, vitriol about her life, but she has also become accustomed to the validation. I have been put through the ringer, she says, 100%. Still better than my worst day withering away at a life of quiet desperation. When this housewife, speaking on condition of anonymity, because she doesn't want to lose her nightmare of a dream job, went to last year's BravoCon, a 3-day convention attended by 30,000 or so fans. She turned to 2 former Bravo celebrities and said, how do I ever be happy after this? This is the deal Bravo stars make with the devil, and there are many stars. There are currently 10 Real Housewives shows and about 20 other properties in the Bravo reality space, including the Emmy-winning Top Chef and improbable Emmy nominee Vanderpump Rules. The biggest series have 11 million viewers each. Network executives turned master of the ceremonies Andy Cohen host Watch What Happens Live, a nightly talk show on which non-Bravo celebrities and cast play games as Cohen polls the at-home audience with questions like, which Real Housewife of New Jersey has had the better nose job? Bravo, which is owned by NBC Universal, distributes the series on cable and via the streaming service Peacock. Shows are produced by third-party partners like Banna J and Warner Brothers Discovery. Advance Magazine Publisher Inc., which owns Condé Nast, which owns Vanity Fair, owns a stake in Warner Brothers Discovery. Those partners have subsidiary production companies, including 51 Mines Entertainment, which makes most of the Charter Yachts franchises of Below Deck, and Shed Media, The Real Housewives of New York City and Salt Lake City, and all-star housewife show Ultimate Girls Trip, known as UGT. The production companies are on the ground during the filming of shows. The series and cast members orbit around Cohen, who described himself to me during a 2021 interview for New York Magazine as, quote, their boss, among other roles including, quote, father. It's an unusual employment arrangement in a singular workplace. If you watch these shows from the words Scary Island or Dinner Party from Hell or Amsterdam are a wormhole to the collective memory of a fandom. If you don't watch, it's easiest to think of these unscripted but highly produced series as a Bravo cinematic universe, an interconnected group of characters linked by Watch What Happens Live, social media, and crossover series. The stars are usually affluent, often poorly behaved, mostly women who either know they're ridiculous or don't care if anybody thinks they are. As Lisa Shannon, Senior Vice President of Programming and Development at Shed, has said, quote, this is a comedy. But the material is not always funny. Leah McSweeney relapsed after 9 years of sobriety before her first season on The Real Housewives of New York City. Her recollection of a 2019 cast trip to Mexico, described at the beginning of this story, is from one of many interviews conducted over many months with current and former Housewives producers and Bravo staffers about the things that viewers haven't seen. Racist language and behavior, the real-world effects of making entertainment out of destructive interpersonal relationships, the downsides of fame, and substance abuse beyond the meme fodder that drives fan discourse. According to some housewives, Bravo should answer for breaking them down for storylines. According to those who are responsible for the shows, however, the cast are largely in control of their own destinies. Now, with one of the most famous Bravo stars, Bethany Frankel, calling for a union, 2 legal complaints filed by talent in the last year, and NBC Universal releasing renewed guidance around cast behavior and production oversight, the Bravoverse is in the midst of a reckoning. I'm going to stop there for a second. Oof, 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 oof. Okay, this is the thing. And then we'll keep going. When it comes to Leah McSweeney and her sobriety, I'm a little torn, and I want to know what you guys think. Put your comments down below. Is it Bravo or NBC's Universal's responsibility to check her drinking because she was sober for 9 years? Or is it Leah McSweeney's responsibility not to take a job where she feels pressured to drink if she's been sober for 9 years? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, is it her responsibility not to take a job that puts her in that situation? Or is it the job's responsibility not to create those situations? I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to that one. Kind of on the fence. Now, when they were talking about, certain housewives who would drink and they would, pee the bed and puke and black out and all of that stuff. Now, when it comes to that, I think it's the company's responsibility. I think it's NBC's responsibility, Bravo's responsibility, the production company's responsibility, because your, quote, employee is in a harm's way on the job that you provided them with. And you are not seeking the proper medical attention for these people. Yes, they called a doctor, got the shot, but also when they're stumbling, when they're peeing, when they're puking, when they're fighting, the cameras are still rolling. So I want to know what you guys think about, where does that responsibility lie? All right, let's keep going. Anyone who has watched reality TV since The Real World first premiered in 1992 is at least partially aware of the normalization of televised intoxication. But alcohol has become a character itself, as the lubricant that made the cast of Jersey Shore DTF and the bubbles that preceded 1,000 bachelor tears. On Bravo shows, there are champagne rooms and fireball nips and fireball bottles and Belvedere and sodas served in short glasses with 3 lemons, carcass out. There are nightly drinking games on Watch What Happens Live and weekly shot skis, where Cohen and guests take shots off of Yes, a ski. During a panel at BravoCon in 2022, a Ultimate Girls Trip producer told fans that during filming, cast members Marisol Patton started her mornings with Cockies, juice and vodka. The audience loved it. According to one housewife, the cast stashed water bottles filled with clear alcohol around the set, both to calm their own nerves, and they hoped to get one particularly volatile cast member, quote, crazy drunk. She felt like the producers hoped so too. Quote, it's just faster and easier, the housewife says, of trying to give the producers what they want. Cast members describe some producers using big words, phrases written in large font on their phones, held up to redirect conversations. Former Real House of New York, Ebony K. Williams, says she ignored one that read, bring up Sonya's drinking, referring to Sonya Morgan. Before a day of shooting begins, the production team sends out the beats of each scene, topics they've written and wanted addressed. The following is a beat reviewed by Vanity Fair for an episode that was filmed in November of 2020. Quote, Sonya is on a loop and this abuse of pills and alcohol has been going on for way too long. Is there anything they can do, or do they just need to be there for her when she falls? Okay, side note on this, all right? Because I'm going to try and be fair, and I might be a little devil's advocate. This is the thing. When it comes to producers creating beats for scenes and trying to create storylines, well, yes, that's their job. You know what I mean? Like, we're not watching a camera crew following people around just without any editing, without any narrative, without a storyline. It's actually not unscripted television. It's actually called scripted reality. That's what it's really called. So I'm not that up in arms about producers producing a show, because that's their job. You need a beginning, you need a middle, you need an end, you need storylines, you need conflict, you need resolution, you need to make sure that it makes sense for the audience, for continuity. So that part I'm okay with. I get that. The other part that is more problematic is I do agree that alcohol has become its own character, its own lubricant, its own feeling of, every single scene, it's always, let's do shots, let's have drinks, let's get drunk, let's get wasted, let's party. It is heavily, heavily, heavily promoted or encouraged for people to drink. Now, one thing I have heard that production does, which I think is wrong, is they'll say, oh, your call time is 4:00. So you'll come at 4:00 and they'll be like, oh, we have to wait. Somebody's late. Drink. So then they have people drinking without food for hours. So then by the time they put the cameras up, the people are already drunk and ready to go. And then on top of that, they are drinking in the scenes. So I think that if production is strategically feeding people alcohol, strategically, pushing back call times to get people drunk before they film, that I think is wrong. That I think is wrong. You shouldn't do that to someone. That's exploitation, right? That to me is wrong. But I think also, let's go back to talking about Leah McSweeney. I think when it came to her, I think she felt she had to drink in order to be cast on the show, right? And I don't think that's necessarily true. This season on Beverly Hills, we have Kyle, who is sober and she's not drinking on the show. We've had other, I'm trying to think of other people. We've had other housewives who aren't big drinkers and they drink water and they don't drink a lot. So I don't know if that was a self-imposed pressure Leah had on the show to thinking that they won't cast me if I'm sober, right? Maybe, maybe not. But then at that point, you have to decide what is more important, being on the show or my sobriety and my health. Very similar as well to a lot of the housewives being exposed for either being in fake relationships, paying people to say that they're in a relationship or whatever the case may be, or being separated and lying and saying they're still together, or, their person is dipping it and doing it and cheating and they have an open relationship and they're fronting for the cameras like they're in this happy relationship when we all know they're not. Or on the flip side of that, very similar to what's happening with Uba and Jenna on the Real Housewives of New York. They actually are in relationships, but their partner doesn't want to be on the show. But instead of saying, I'm in a relationship and my partner doesn't want to be on the show, they lie and say they're single because they think if we tell the truth that we're in relationships, but they don't want to be on the show, then they won't cast me. I think a big problem is that there has been all of these sort of pre-described narratives, personas, caricatures of what a housewife is. And now we have housewives, old and new, just faking the funk, right? Doing anything and everything. Let's throw a glass, let's scream and lie. Let's say these people are racist. This person's a homophobe. This person's gay. I'm in a relationship. I'm not in a relationship. I'm wasted. I'm this. I feel like the problem is that Housewives has devolved basically into a caricature of itself. It's no longer rooted in any type of truth. Not that I think that reality TV is, God's honest truth. Obviously not. It's scripted reality, but it's gone so far away from anything that's real. People are just showing up and playing characters at this point. You know what I mean? It's not even really rooted in anything. All right, let's keep going. And I want to know what you guys think. Put it down below too. When she was on Roni, Frankel adds, I was talking to producers about how we're going to bring into the show that Luann de Lesseps' fiance has cheated on her. A person with knowledge said Frankel acted on her own accord. Or a producer comes in and tells me that somebody is trying on wedding dresses when they're not engaged, and I bring that into a scene. All right, with this, I think that, okay, a couple of things with this one. I get Bethany Frankel is spearheading this, but she has to sort of own her piece in it, because I think that the problem isn't just NBC and Bravo and their production companies exploiting the talent, right? There's also the problem of housewives exploiting each other. Housewives have done each other dirty, again, because they think they have to be shady and exposing people and going at it and taking each other down, whereas it really should be them having a sisterhood and having fun and having kikis and laughing and going on trips and spending lavish money. Now it's all about, I'm going to expose you for being a fraud. I'm going to expose your husband for being gay. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. So I think if Bethany Frankel and these other housewives who are going after Bravo and NBC, they also have to look in the mirror and say, well, where did I participate in trying to bring other people down? People's addictions have been exposed. People's families have been exposed. For example, when Brandy exposed that Adrienne had a surrogacy for her children, when her own children didn't know that. That was way back in the day for Beverly Hills, right? When Kyle Richards told the world that her sister Kim was an alcoholic. That was a big thing, right? And then when people are also lying and making up horrible things, like what we saw with Potomac, with Chris Bassett and Jizzy Neck and all of that stuff going on, and Ashley being like, oh, I didn't feel comfortable with him, making allegations about different violations that never happened. So if we're going to have a reckoning with Bravo and NBC, which I do think we should have, I'm not defending them, there also needs to be a reckoning within the talent themselves. Bethany has gone on tirades calling people everything but a child of God. She read Luann for filth. She did a black scent talking about the Housewives of Atlanta. She read Sonia for filth. So there needs to be a reckoning in general about what's going on. And how come there was no accountability for what happened in Beverly Hills going after Garcelle's son with Botgate, right? There was no type of justice for that. There wasn't even NBC and Bravo didn't even do an investigation into that. And that, again, that was housewife on housewife crime. So there needs to be a bigger conversation going on about everybody's accountability in what's happening, because the housewives, to be honest, are just as dirty as Bravo and NBC when it comes to trying to tear each other down. Also, what about, Melissa Gorga and Jersey and Erica Jane Girardi and other people, Diana Jenkins, whoever, who go after content creators who are sending cease and desist? The problem is that the rot goes so deep, right? They were never held accountable for trying to get content creators shut down. Bethany Frankel did the same thing. It was more about beauty TikTokers. She tried to get them shut down because they were exposing her beauty stuff, right? Where is the accountability there? So I think this is very one-sided in the sense of let's just blame Bravo and NBC and the production companies, where yes, they do have a lot of blame, but it's rotten to the core. And it's corrupt to the core. And some of the people complaining have also been rotten to the core and have done very questionable things to their fellow co-stars and to content creators out there. So that needs to be talked about as well. Okay. According to McSweeney and Williams, producers did not suggest court-telling Morga's on-set drinking, even as they instructed a cast members to discuss it. Whatever has aired on the show is reflective of her experience, said someone who is familiar with production. Shed's current alcohol policy states, "We have always strived to depict cast members as being authentic on the show. Therefore, cast members and cast members only make their own decisions about whether to consume alcohol." Quote, "Hot sheets are production's daily post-filming logs. They describe on-camera action and dialogue in detail, from cast spats to Ramona's dogs peeing on her floor. Cohen receives hot sheets for the shows on which he is a producer, including The Real Housewives and Ultimate Girls Trip. A person who works in production says they are written by the field team and distributed to the post-production team that uses them in the edit, as well as various executives at Bravo and NBC Universal. Off-camera interactions aren't discussed on hot sheets, but executives have become aware of certain complaints. Roni season 13 featured Williams, the show's first Black cast member. In 2020 and 2021, Singer's allegedly racial hostility and use of the N-word in conversation with a Black crew member during season 13 production were the subject of complaints within Shed Media, Warner Brothers Discovery, Bravo, and NBC Universals. Companies declined to comment on specific allegations. Of course they did, because they probably are bracing for lawsuits. Ramona Singer continued to film after the alleged incidents, has since been part of 2 seasons of Ultimate Girls Trip, and appeared on Watch What Happens Live as this story was going to press. When asked if she used the N-word in conversation with a Black member of production, Singer responded, "Never. Everybody wants a bag of crap to not be on them at all times," Frankel told Vanity Fair. The most successful housewife of all time would know. In July, she called for her former reality TV peers to unionize and directed them to legal resources. She described some of these castmates and crew as people I never would have given the time of day, who I judged through these toxic process, and who may not have a past I would normally respect, but who have been tossed away after being used like trash. As she put it, it's kill or be killed. First of all, okay, all right. This is so problematic, I can't even handle it. Let's break this down, because there's 2 problems. There's a lot of problems. The first problem is, number 1, do I personally believe Ramona Singer used the N-word? I do. I do. Ramona Singer has made it very clear who Ramona Singer is. Do I think that NBC, Bravo, Shed Media, and all of the other companies knew she said it? Yes. Do I think they shrugged and said, well, it wasn't on camera, so whatever, let's keep it popping? Yes. I believe the Black crew member. I believe the allegation. And I believe the powers that be didn't care. They didn't care. And they kept it rolling. They didn't care. I do believe that. And I also want to say something that's also very problematic. Again, it's with Bethany, and I used to really like Bethany, but this quote that she has in Vanity Fair makes me really not like her. I'm going to read it again. She said, "People I never would have given the time of day, who I judged through this toxic process, and who may not have a past I would normally respect, but who have been tossed away after being used like trash." So Bethany, you basically just called these people trash. You basically just said that they were beneath you. You basically said you do not respect them, and you personally would not give them the time of day, but yet you want to be the person who is being their advocate. Come on now, come on. That's why I'm saying there needs to be a reckoning for everybody involved in the situation. You see, everybody involved needs a reckoning. I think there are very few and far between, quote, innocent people involved in this toxicity. Bethany isn't innocent. The way she has spoken to other cast members, the way she has acted, and then she basically just said, I thought these people were trash who are beneath me, who I wouldn't give the time of day. That's basically what she just said. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, let's keep going. In May of 2019, nearly 3 years before she checked into a psychiatric hospital, McSweeney was auditioning for The Real Housewives. "I'm drinking again, but it's fine," McSweeney, 41, says she told the producer. She says she had been sober for almost a decade up to that point, and she describes this moment as her first attempt to minimize her substance abuse issues with Bravo. The conversation moved on to McSweeney's apartment size, small for a housewife, and what she thought of the other cast members. On August 2nd, 2019, Lisa Shannon of Shed called McSweeney to tell her she got the job. The next day, McSweeney says she stopped drinking. According to McSweeney, her contract was for $3,000 an episode. As a matter of policy, Shed does not comment on compensation. More than a month later, on an early September cast trip to the Hamptons, McSweeney began drinking again. "I don't consider myself an alcoholic at all. I've been drinking for the last 6 months or so, and I pick and choose when I drink," she said on the camera that season. McSweeney now says she was trying to keep her relapse from becoming a storyline. McSweeney says co-showrunner Darren Ward had warned her, quote, "This crap is boring as hell, and you better turn it up." Ward did not respond to questions from Vanity Fair. McSweeney turned it up. She drank and took off her clothes, and wearing only a thong, threw a lit tiki torch across Singer's lawn. She doesn't remember that evening because she was browned out, she says. But when the episode aired in April of 2020, McSweeney as Hurricane Leah was instantly iconic. Again, with this, I want to know what you guys think. When the producers say turn it up, is it their fault that McSweeney then gets browned out and drinks and breaks her sobriety? Or should Leah McSweeney not put herself in a position where she hears turn up and she drinks her sobriety? My bigger question is not so much about Leah particularly, but I think in general, should these reality production companies, NBC, Bravo, NBC, all of these people be doing deeper mental health evaluations, doing deeper dives into people's lifestyles to see if they are mentally fit and competent and emotionally healthy enough to be put in these situations, right? And this is just my opinion. I'm not saying this is true because you know how they get. Don't come after me, NBC. You came after me before and I'm back, so leave me alone. This is my question. Do I believe that their so-called mental evaluations and background checks on these people are genuine? I don't. I think that they have mental health people who will sign off on anyone that they want to bring on, if you get what I'm saying, right? Like, think about, like, if you could get someone to say anything, but there's been too many people on these shows who have substance abuse problems, whether it's pills or harder drugs or alcohol problems, or dealing with very hard to deal with mental illnesses, personality disorders. There are so many of them. And it kind of goes to that saying, you have to have a certain personality for reality TV, right? So it kind of bakes into that. And my question is, are they doing legitimate mental health screenings for the people on these shows? And also, are they doing legitimate background checks? Why is it on every single franchise, basically, on every single show, Housewives and beyond, there is at least one person who is actively participating in some type of fraud or criminal behavior? Some type of fraud or criminal behavior going on. And I'm talking about all of the shows. On Southern Charm, what was his name? Thomas Raddle Dazzle, whatever his last name was, Thomas Rad. He was, what was he doing? He was doing hard substances, some nose candy. He was also accused of, being sexually inappropriate without people's consent, the nanny and other people. He was also accused of all of this stuff, right? So on all of the shows, not just the Housewives, there are people who are literally being accused of criminal behavior. And then on shows like The Bachelor and other shows, against each other. So what is really going on? Even on Love is Blind, the Netflix show, they have a case now where one of the members is saying that she was, taken advantage of in a sexual way without her consent on the show. It's rampant across all of reality TV. So that needs to be addressed as well. Yikes. McSweeney says that in April of 2020, during an off-air exchange on Watch What Happens Live, Cohen asked her, "Were you already drinking, or was your relapse at their winery or on the trip?" She told him she doesn't dry when filming again, hoping to de-emphasize it. She wasn't dry when filming began. Oh, I'm sorry. She told him she wasn't dry when filming began. So basically what she's saying is that she lied to Andy Cohen and said that she was already drinking prior to beginning the show. She believes he looked disappointed that at the exact moment of McSweeney's relapse wouldn't be documented on the show. During taping of season 12 reunion in August of 2020, McSweeney says Cohen asked which drugs she used during her active addiction. Though a Bravo representative, through a Bravo representative, Cohen declined to answer questions. Side note, Andy Cohen has had allegations against him. Again, I'm saying these are allegations. These are out there on the Googler. People can Google them. This is not coming from me personally. When he had a falling out with Kathy Griffin, she came out and said that prior to Watch What Happens Live, and this is what Kathy said, this is not what I am saying, that he offered her some nose candy and that it's always going on backstage. We all know that Andy Cohen loves, the ganja or whatever, which is fine. It's completely legal. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also been other people who have talking openly about illegal substances, Vanderpump Rules. Tom Sandoval is talking about doing shrooms and doing mushrooms on the show. Last time I checked, doing mushrooms is illegal. That was never checked, right? Also, don't forget about, Xanax smoothies and a bag of pills and popping pills and doing this. Erica Jane admitted to abusing controlled substances, her prescription pills. She said, "Oh, I was popping all these pills and drinking, and that's why I cussed out a child." You know what I'm saying? So there has been clearly documented instances of either alleged or people themselves acknowledging that they have done illegal controlled substances with zero consequences. And beyond zero consequences, they are rewarded for this poor behavior. So that also needs to be addressed. The following season, according to McSweeney, Morgan was so inebriated that she vomited and urinated on herself on a different trip to the Hamptons. Whatever footage there may have been did not air. Sonia Morgan didn't respond to questions from Vanity Fair, and a source with insight says producers don't recall the incident. Someone documented in the hot sheet for October 22nd, 2020, that Morgan was, quote, continuously getting more and more out of control and drunk. In 2015, during a trip to Atlantic City, a RHONY cast member told production that Morgan was too drunk to film and that a real intervention was necessary. Frankel staged one on camera. It didn't take. Now, don't forget, they were on some trip. Remember when Sonia got so drunk, she slipped at the table and hit her head? And they called the paramedics to come. An EMT came, and they had to check Sonia to see if she had taken pills. This was right around the time Bethany's fiance Dennis had passed away from an overdose. Remember when Sonia was slurring her words and she said she had taken, quote, water pills for weight loss, and that's why she got so wasted? I've never taken water pills, but my guess is that water pills doesn't cause you to black out and slur your words and hit your head on a table. I don't know. I've never taken water pills. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But that is also extremely alarming, right? Also, let's not forget about Luann. She had, her not a DUI, but when she hit the cop in the hotel when she was like wasted and she had to do community service and all of that stuff, when she was intoxicated and all of that. So there's that situation as well that's going on where there are so many of these, and I'll just say women majoritively. There are the men too. Don't get it twisted. They're especially over there on Southern Charm and all these other shows who get blackout drunk and they fight and they do crazy things all of the time. They've talked about this, Vanderpump Rules, all the different shows. So there is a question of who is mining these situations, like who's looking out for the well-being of the talent. Because at this point, it's not Bravo, it's not NBC, it's not the production company, and very, very sadly, it is not each other. And that's a big problem, what I was saying before. All of the housewives, they're also looking for moments. They're looking for moments. They're looking for storylines. They're looking for people to take down and to attack and to expose. So nobody is protecting anybody. And that's why we have a situation now where there's lawsuits against NBC and Bravo. There's Vanity Fair exposés. There are people who are going to jail. There are people who are going to rehab. Think about Taylor Armstrong's husband. He unfortunately is no longer with us because he chose to no longer be here. You know what I'm saying? What about that situation? When there's allegations of domestic violence going on as well. So there's just a lot. There's a lot. Let's keep going. McSweeney says the only time production intervened in her own drinking was when singer and De Lesseps complained to producers that McSweeney had been too disruptive while filming in Rhode Island. On the trip, McSweeney threw a martini glass during one dinner and ravioli at Singer during another. A source involved with production says if the cast is out at a restaurant, production pays the restaurant bill. On production trips, production stocks the fridge and pantry with requested food and beverages. McSweeney says Shannon phoned her and said, "We need you to be lucid." And at Shannon's request, a mental health professional called McSweeney, although they did not mention alcohol. Now, if this is the case, is it enough to tell a cast member who is clearly spiraling, "We need you lucid," and just to have a telephone conversation with someone who is a mental health provider, they're saying, or should she have been pulled? When does it get to the point where production says, you're no longer a viable person to be on the show because you have these problems and because this is what's going on? When do they step in and say you're no longer viable? And I also think a problem is this culture of drinking and exposing people and being the baddest behaved and throwing things and all of this stuff has been so glorified that they think they have to do this in order to keep their seat at the table, right? Okay, let's keep going. Other housewives recall similar experiences with mental health care providers referred by Bravo. They have an 800 number for Dr. Barry, one housewife says of Barry Goldstein, an off-screen psychologist who goes by his first name with Bravo clients. His website, realityshrink.net, notes he is also a board game designer and expert. Goldstein has called me on many occasions as a check-in, says a housewife, which in her estimation feels like you're not doing what they want to do. Goldstein did not respond to Vanity Fair's request for comments. According to a source familiar with production, all cast members have access to mental health care resources. But this goes back to my point that I made earlier. Just because you have access to a mental health care provider does not mean that mental health care provider is legitimate or impartial or is quality or has your best interest in mind. I'm not saying that against Dr. Barry Goldstein. I'm not maligning this man. I don't know him. I don't know who he is. So I'm not saying that against him personally. I'm saying in general, it makes you kind of think, is this mental health provider actually looking out for me, the patient, my best interest? Or are they trying to get me to fall in line so production can get the shot? Do you see what I'm saying? I want my mental health provider to be on my team, to have my well-being in mind, to be impartial. And that if they are partial, the partiality is to making sure that my mental and emotional and physical well-being is what is actually in play here. It sounds to me more like they're checking boxes and they're crossing T's and dotting I's so they can say we have mental health care providers, but the mental health that they are providing is working on production's behalf, not on behalf of who would be their patient if they're getting mental health care, right? It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. During season 13, which filmed from late 2020 to early 2021, McSweeney was freshly sober, but she struggled with the isolation of COVID, and her grandmother, who had been a key figure of support, was in hospice. The cast was about to take a trip to Singer's house in the Hamptons, and McSweeney texted Ward and his fellow showrunner, John Paparazzo. "My grandmother is going to die any day now," adding that if the funeral happens while we are in the Hamptons, there's no way I can miss it. Sorry. Paparazzo responded, "Obviously, hang in there, thinking of you." Okay. This might be an unpopular opinion, or you guys might be thinking this too. But I have a real hard time with Leah McSweeney being a victim in this. I do. I do. It's very similar to, and I struggle with this, and I want to know what you guys think. Who would be a legitimate poster child for this cause? What reality star, doesn't necessarily have to be a housewife, but what reality star would be a legitimate person for this cause? Because when I think about Leah McSweeney, I personally don't think of her as a victim of Bravo or NBC. This is what I really think about Leah McSweeney. I think Leah McSweeney wanted to be on reality television, and I think she was willing to sacrifice her sobriety in order to do so. And I think she was willing to do whatever she had to do or what she thought she had to do to be relevant on the show. And in this text message, she says, "My grandma is going to die any day now. If the funeral happens while we're here, I can't miss it." She did not say, "My grandmother is going to die any day now. I have to be with my family and be by her side. I will be back when I can." Do you see what I'm saying? It's very similar to how Bethany came out with what do you call it? Rachel as the first poster child with the podcast, where I was like, again, Rachel, nobody asked you to sleep with Tom Sandoval. You were sleeping with him outside of filming. You did the most all by yourself. So you are not the poster child for this. And I feel like neither is Leah. I feel like what happened to Leah was her own making. And I think Leah's pissed now because obviously she didn't do well on Ultimate Girls Trip, and that goes, she was on Ultimate Girls Trip and she was sober and they still casted her for that. So she can't say, "Oh, I didn't get cast because I wasn't drinking." Well, they cast you for Ultimate Girls Trip and you were sober then and you got to be on the show. You just did a poor job because your personality sucked. So I'm trying to think of who would be a really good example of the poster child for this cause, because I do think there is a worthy cause here. On the flip side to that, as I talk this through with you guys, you know what it is? It's not so much that I need a perfect victim, because I don't believe in perfect victims. I need someone who's going to take accountability for the role that they played. That's what it is. I need someone from reality TV. It's not Leah McSweeney. It's not Bethany Frankel. It sure as hell isn't Rachel. I need someone to come out and say, "Listen, yeah, I did all these crazy things because I thought I had to be on the show. And yes, I wanted to be rich. Yes, I wanted to be famous. And these are the things I did. And I admit that I did those things because I wanted money and I wanted fame. However, with that being said, these are also the horrible things that happened. These are also the ways that I was exploited. These are also the ways that I was used. These are also the reasons why we need to have residuals. We need to have true mental health people on staff, right? That's what I need, because there's no such thing as a perfect person. Therefore, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. But I think where this doesn't land with me is the lack of personal accountability. You know what I'm saying? That would make this land a lot more, because they didn't make you not be there for your family, Leah. You said in your own text message, "My grandma's going to die any day. If we have the funeral, then I have to dip because I have to go to the funeral." If it were my grandmother dying, I would have said, "My grandmother is going to die any day now. I need to go be with my family." And I would not have gone on a girls' trip. I would have went and been with my family. And I don't think she would have been punished for that. If anything, they would have had her chime in a FaceTime. "Oh, Leah, how are you doing? We miss you, blah, 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 blah." You see what I'm saying? So I want to know what you guys think. Put it out there. Put it out there. Okay. Soon after the trip began, McSweeney learned her grandmother was losing consciousness. She began having panic attacks. A source involved with production says Ward told her, "Whatever day or time you need to be with your grandmother, we're going to make that happen. Don't get stressed out about that. We're on your side and we're going to support you, okay?" But McSweeney felt his tone meant the opposite. A car was later arranged for McSweeney when she requested to leave the Hamptons a few hours early. Her grandmother had already died. Some fans questioned why McSweeney hadn't gone to her grandmother earlier. A thread Cohen encouraged on Watch What Happens Live after being asked by Cohen about McSweeney and the trip. Former Real Housewives of New York housewife Heather Thomas says, I think it was better for Leah to go home. It hurt so bad that I was not able to grieve, McSweeney says. That I had people not showing me any kind of compassion or humanity regarding it at the same time, McSweeney was trying to maintain a good relationship with producers and convince herself that what had happened in the Hampton was okay. She texted Ward and Paparazzo, I'm glad I stayed in Long Island because that's what my grandma wanted. McSweeney says reading the message now is like seeing someone with Stockholm Syndrome. See, again, that's what I'm saying. It needs to be accountability, saying, oh, I had Stockholm Syndrome. I don't buy that, Leah. I think that you didn't want to jeopardize your role on the show. You wanted, thank you, Bab, so much for becoming a member. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I think that she wanted so much to stay on the show and her relevancy and to have her moments. You know what I'm saying? And to have her moments that in her mind, she chose not to do that, right? But there have been plenty of times when housewives have left to attend to family business or emergencies within their family, and they weren't, punished for that. So that's what I'm saying. There needs to be some type of, yeah, these are the mistakes I made, and this is why I made them. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other horrible things happening. That doesn't mean that there aren't real issues that need to be addressed, because this is life. You see what I'm saying? It's not a fairy tale. Things happen, people make mistakes, people mess up, people do stuff. It doesn't negate when other bad things happen. Right? But I want to know what you guys think. Put your question in comments down below. While the season was airing, McSweeney says Shannon told her, I just think that there was such a stark difference between you when you were drinking versus this season, and that's why the audience kind of didn't like you. A source says McSweeney complained about the audience hating her, but her drinking was not at the center of these conversations. The source also notes that viewers found McSweeney's struggles to be relatable. Nevertheless, McSweeney informed Shannon of her decision to leave the show by phone in late 2021. I'm not trying to bash Leah, but I don't think it was Leah's choice to leave the show. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that's another Lisa Rinna. I quit. No, you didn't. And this is another thing. Again, I have to agree with the production side on this one. Speaking personally, I did not dislike Leah because she was drinking. I disliked Leah because to me, she wasn't a very likable person. She wasn't fun to watch. She wasn't authentic. To me, I felt like she came on the show ready to play a part, ready to play a role. I didn't think we ever got to know the real Leah. She came on the show acting like she was, liberal and young and sex positive. Turns out she's very, very conservative. Not that politics should play a big role, but when you're pretending to be one way on the show because you want to be fake woke, but then it turns out that's not really who you are, that to me really didn't land. I never bought her storyline that she was converting to Judaism. That didn't make any sense. I didn't buy that. I thought that she just wasn't fun to watch herself. I don't think it had anything to do with her drinking. I thought that her drinking and her antics to me was very performative, when it came to that. So when it comes to that, I do agree with them. I think it was her we didn't like. However, there have been other examples of people where for example, with Sonia, since they brought Sonia up in the article, I did feel that not that I didn't like Sonia because she was drinking. I'm not saying that at all. I did see that, oh, wait a minute, there's something going on with Sonia because of the drinking, slurring the words, passing out, popping the pills. There's something going on with the drinking. Also with Marisol on Real Housewives of Miami, I think there's something going on there. Like the article brought up with the cockies always being, always drinking all times of the day, and like having that be such a part of who she is, of always drinking. If you watch if you watch Basketball Wives, Jackie Christie, she is always drinking. And I'm always concerned about what's going on with her relationship to alcohol. James Kennedy on Vanderpump Rules, he clearly has a problem with alcohol. Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules, she is sober and has been praised for being sober on the show, right? So again, with these people coming out, Leah, we didn't dislike you because you were drinking. We disliked you because of your personality on the show. Do you see? Okay. But put it down below. Let me know what you guys think. Weeks later, McSweeney says she suffered a major depressive episode related to the show and her grandmother's death. Her mother and a former long-term partner, the father of McSweeney's teenage daughter, moved into her home, then McSweeney to Silver Hill Hospital. She stayed for 8 days, the longest amount of time insurance would cover. By March 2022, after many hours with a therapist, rabbi, acupuncturist, and healer, McSweeney felt she was in a better place. Bravo and Shed were casting a season of Ultimate Girls Trip to be filmed in Thailand in July of that year. McSweeney says producers swore it would be different this time, fun, and that she was offered $250,000 for 1 week of work. So she got $250,000 for 1 week of work, okay? 1 week of work. Cohen, an NBC Universal executive, told her she was being considered for Roni Legacy, a Roni franchise with veteran NYC housewives that might air alongside a rebooted Roni series with a new cast. According to McSweeney, Cohen also said, "Let's get you through Ultimate Girls Trip first." McSweeney said yes. Okay, here we go. Like I just said, I do not believe Leah McSweeney called NBC Bravo, the production company, and quit the show on the phone, right? Because if she had quit, then why would they come back to her and say, "Oh, we want to get you on Roni Legacy. Oh, we want to get you on Ultimate Girls Trip"? I'm confused by that. If Leah quit the franchise, why would they then come back to her and ask her to be on the franchise? Doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to tell you this again, Leah, you saw that you could make $250,000 for 1 week of work. Call a thing a thing. I would do it too. And this is the thing. I'm not shading Leah when it comes to this. If somebody said, "Hey, Candy, we're going to give you $250,000 if you come and hang out in Thailand for a week, sign me up. My passport is ready to be stamped. Let's go. I'm gone. I'm on the flight. Let's do this. Cameras up. Let's do it," right? Who would say no to $250,000 for 1 week of work? Duh. But say that, and also say, "You know what? I was in a psychiatric facility for 8 days because I was so depressed over how I was, portrayed over my grandmother's death on a TV show. But yet I was willing to go back to the same exact situation because Ultimate Girls Trip, Housewives, it's the same situation, rinse, wash, and repeat, right? To the same exact situation that I am claiming landed me in a psychiatric hospital for $250,000. You see what I'm saying? If you really felt that you were in a psychiatric hospital for 8 days and it was so horrible, why are you now agreeing to go back to the same situation that allegedly put you there in the first place for $250,000? That's what the article says. I'm reading directly from Vanity Fair. It said, I'm going to read it again because this is cuckoo for Cuckoo Puffs. Dun, 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 dun. Where is it? Stockholm Syndrome, blah, 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 blah. It said, McSweeney says producers swore it would be different this time. fun, and that she was offered $250,000. We can do the math. That is $250,000 for 1 week of work. That's why she came back. Come on now. Come on. You know what I'm saying? I would hang out with pretty much almost anybody for $250,000 for 1 week in beautiful Thailand. But yet now she wants to talk about her trauma. Come on, girl, bye. Girl, bye. McSweeney got a text from fellow Ultimate Girls Trip cast member Marisol Patton before filming began. I support your sobriety, obviously, and I could never do what you do because I don't have your willpower, and I marvel at what you have done, Patton wrote. And then, but on that note, I wish you were still drinking, that's all. Yes, I sent the text message, Patton told Vanity Fair. There was a collective memory of the girl running around throwing tiki torches and skinny dipping, and that is who I was hoping to go on vacation with. Okay. This is the thing with that. How is that anybody's fault? Marisol herself, in my opinion, I'm not allegedly, just from what she shows and what she said herself, she doesn't have the willpower, she can do it herself, has a very questionable relationship to alcohol. I'm not saying anybody's an alcoholic. That is not my place. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying based on what she shows herself, drinking from the moment she wakes up to the time she goes to bed, having basically ulcers on Ultimate Girls Trip due to drinking and not eating. Again, this is all on the show. I understand why someone who has their own questionable relationship to alcohol would say to someone who is maybe sober, and maybe this person wishes they had that strength, like she said, hey, I wish you were drinking, because it kind of shines a light on their own stuff. To me, this would only be relevant if Marisol said, yeah, because production told me to say that to her. Then we're talking about culpability. Then we're talking about exploitation. Then we're talking about setups. Then we're talking about a problem. But if Marisol herself just said, hey girl, I'm happy you're sober. I can never do that. But gosh, I wish you were drinking because you were so crazy then. Okay, what's wrong with that? To me, I don't see a problem with that. That's when you say, haha, yeah, that's why I'm not drinking. I get too crazy. End of discussion. The only way this is relevant to this particular conversation is if someone from Bravo or NBC or production told Marisol to say that to Leah to make her feel like she had to drink. That would be where this is a problem. So until Marisol comes out and says that production put her up to that, I don't get the point of including that. Okay. Though McSweeney was vocally sober, cast member Heather Gay asked McSweeney if she was drinking, and she said, let's get Leah drunk. Another cast member, Giselle Bryant, said to McSweeney, like, if you drank this week, would that be a big deal? It would ruin my life, McSweeney said. Now, maybe I'm being a hypocrite on this one, but that's okay. I'm allowed to be. This is where I think Giselle was trying to set Leah up, but that's just because I think Giselle is dirty like that. I think Giselle came on the show being a producer plant. I think Giselle came on the show with a job to do. If you watched Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Thailand, the only thing Giselle did was stir the pot, ask probing questions, dodge any questions about herself. I do think Giselle was trying to do some type of okie doke setup. That's just my opinion on that when it comes to that, because that's who Giselle is. Why would you say to someone, would it be a big deal if you drink this week when you know that they're sober? Heather Gay also, I think, is just messy boots. But again, until they say production told me to do this, this goes back to what I said earlier in this breakdown, where I said it's not just production who needs to be held accountable, it's also the castmates to each other. Because if these castmates are going in on these shows knowing somebody has a drinking problem, knowing somebody is struggling with their sobriety and is putting pressure on them to drink, then that is on the cast member and the talent. And that goes back to what I was saying. There's a lot of toxicity. The rot goes to the core, and there's a lot of people who are doing dirty. A lot of people who are doing dirty. I wouldn't be surprised if they did go on there trying to make a moment, trying to get her drunk so they had someone to talk about. Let's look at Leah being drunk instead of looking at me and what I got going on. They do set each other up. They do try to expose each other. They do plant stuff. They do stir the pot 100%. So is production dirty? Yes, they are, but so are the cast members to each other as well. Always looking for a takedown, right? So there's a lot of people in this situation that needs to take accountability for what they did. Doesn't make one wrong and one right. Just because the castmates are dirty doesn't mean that NBC and Bravo and production companies are clean. Just because production, NBC, Bravo are dirty doesn't mean that 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 the cast members are clean. To be honest with you, I think they're all dirty. All of them are dirty. Thank you, Juanita, for coming a new member. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I want to know what you guys think. Put it down below. Okay, here we go. McSweeney texted Ward, "Did you guys push her, Brian, to talk about the stuff with me? It's so odd." Ward wrote back, "No, we did not." McSweeney texted, "I don't need people trying to undermine my sobriety." Ward responded, "Get out of your head." During lunch at an elephant sanctuary, the cast played a game. One McSweeney says the producers came up with, in which they listed the best and worst parts of being housewives. McSweeney side note, see about the lunch about the game, the best and worst parts. That's what I'm telling you, Giselle, and I also think Portia were producer plants because they were the ones coming up with all of the games and stuff. And they got that from production, right? Let's keep going. McSweeney talked about feeling like she couldn't leave the Hamptons and the depression and inpatient treatment that followed. According to McSweeney, Ward and Paparazzo, the showrunners, came into her room and Ward said, "Lisa Shannon's pissed at you. Then you're gonna get it today." A source familiar with production's thinking says Shannon was not unhappy, just confused by McSweeney's belated upset, as producers had told her she did not need to go on the Hamptons trip at all. The cast began piling on McSweeney, according to people with knowledge, repeatedly telling her on camera that she didn't want to be in Thailand. In confessionals that aired, cast members discussed whether production would ever have pressured them to stay on a trip and not be with a dying grandparent. According to someone with knowledge, there was at least one dissenter, Gay, who said, "They wouldn't even have to say a word. I would be afraid to leave and go to my grandmother's funeral. I would not do it." That footage wasn't included in the show. All right, this is where I land on this, and I want to know what you guys think when it comes to this whole situation. Leah McSweeney, shut up. I think Leah strategically was acting like she was so manipulated into staying and that she felt pressured to stay on the show because of her grandmother, you know what I'm saying, and all of that stuff. And because of the backlash she got on social media, she was now trying to clean it up with that statement on Ultimate Girls Trip. But it's too late. You already exposed yourself with the text. You clearly said, "My grandmother's going to die any day now. If the funeral happens, I have to go to the funeral." You never said, "My grandmother is dying. I need to be with my family right now." Production even said, "We got you thinking of you." Okay? So stop it, Leah. Stop. And I don't think that the rest of the cast were piling on Leah because she made that particular comment. I think they were piling on Leah because she was miserable the entire time. I'm sorry, but if you're paying me $250,000, I'm going to put a smile on my freaking face. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to try and get to know everybody. I'm going to have a good time. Doesn't mean I'm going to get blackout drunk. Doesn't mean I'm going to be wasted. Doesn't mean I'm going to physically fight anybody. Doesn't mean I'm going to try to expose anybody. I'm just going to show up and have a good time and be grateful that I am so blessed that I get to be in Thailand making $250,000. Leah had a stank attitude the entire time, talking about her period and everything else under the sun. She had a stank attitude and she didn't want to be there. She was barely even phoning it in. So the people had a problem with you, Leah, not because you said that you were pressured into staying in the Hamptons. People have a problem with you, Leah, just like on the show, because of you. Not because of anything else. In the same way that she was trying to clean it up, claiming that she was so distraught that she didn't get to go, that she didn't be with her grandmother, of course the producers are going to ask in confessional, do you ever feel pressured by production, if a family member is dying, because now they have to clean it up and protect themselves. And Heather Gay can miss me. Heather Gay with the it wouldn't be a question, I would be too afraid. That's what Heather Gay says to every freaking thing. Heather Gay, Heather Gay's personality is, I'm an insecure, codependent people pleaser. That's her personality. She says that about everything. I'm too scared to go against Jen. I'm too scared to talk to Lisa Barlow. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up, Heather Gay. Stop. You know good and well, if a family member was dying, they would let you go be with that family member. I'm not buying what you're putting down, Leah. I'm not. But let me know what you guys think about it. Okay. Several days before Ultimate Girls Trip wrapped, McSweeney had a panic attack, which was aired. According to McSweeney, a staff medic gave McSweeney a makeshift IV clipped to a clothes hanger on the bed frame, which then fell and pulled the needle out of her wrist. When McSweeney's condition didn't improve, the crew took McSweeney to the hospital where she was admitted overnight. Two members of production were nearby, and McSweeney started crying to the nurses. Just keep them away from me, she said. In November, McSweeney found out from De Lesseps and another cast member, Dorinda Medley, that Legacy would be filming without her. You think? This is the thing. I'm with production on this one. I wouldn't want Leah back either. We just gave you $250,000. You show up, you act and stink. You're lying on us about what happened before in the Hamptons and your dying grandmother. Then you're yelling at people in the hospital saying, stay away from me when you allegedly have a stomach bug. Was Leah actually sick? I don't know. And that's saying a lot, because for me, if anybody says they're sick, my default is to believe them. You could be like, oh my God, I have monkey flu. I'd be like, you do? Do you want a hug? You know what I'm saying? I believe people all the time, but do I believe Leah? No. If I was production, I wouldn't want Leah back either. She seems very weird to me, but also she's not giving. If the audience doesn't connect with her, and you've been given multiple chances. You were given the shot on Roni. You failed it. You weren't a fit on Roni. You didn't land. Then you were given $250,000 and a shot on Ultimate Girls Trip, and you came in like a freaking wet blanket, and you failed there. Why would I then bring you on for another chance to show up and just be a miserable person that nobody wants to watch or have fun with? I'm with production on this one. Again, they're not proving what they need to prove to me. But that's not to say that I don't think that there's been very shady behavior by every party involved. I think Bravo has been shady, NBC has been shady, production has been shady, and cast has been shady. They've all been shady. Okay. On March 10th, 2023, McSweeney and her attorneys at Allman Matz filed an employment discrimination complaint with Equal Opportunity Commission against Bravo, Shed Media, and its parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Cohen, Shannon, Paparazzo, and Ward, citing a violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Leah, not the Americans with Disabilities Act. Leah. On May 15th, Christy Del Relicun, an attorney representing all respondents, denied the claims. The response stated that McSweeney's disabilities were allowed for and that she was not retaliated against. In fact, the response says, production spent endless amounts of time accommodating her and her and only internally expressed frustration with the fact that she was knowingly misrepresenting what had transpired. The attorney also pointed out that the complainant herself spent much of Roni season 12, the season of her relapse, discussing and sometimes even mocking the alleged disabilities that are now the subject of the instance complaints. And stated, complainant's need for affirmation was never ending, but that need was completely separate from any alleged disability. The response notes several instances of support, but McSweeney maintains those were either subsequently reneged on or she felt weren't offered in good faith. This is the thing, though. This is the thing. And this is going to be the problem. Your assumption of someone's tone or good faith isn't grounds for what you're saying. They would have to have had actually reneged on what they said, or they would have had to actually retaliated against you for what you're saying. You saying, like Heather Gay said, oh, well, I felt, it sounded like, well, maybe, doesn't prove what you're saying. Because people take things very differently, just like what the production was doing by polling the housewives. Do you feel pressure not to see a family member who's sick? Do you think you wouldn't be able to go? 5 out of the 6 said, no, I would definitely go. And the 6th was Heather Gay, whose personality is codependent, people pleaser. And I think she fakes a lot too. She fakes that, oh, you know, I would be so scared. Oh, I would take anything. Stop it, Heather, stop. Right? So if 5 out of 6 say, no, I didn't take their tone that way, then you saying, well, I took that tone that way and therefore I did something is not proof of the other side's negligence or the other side's retaliation. That's just proof that you assumed something, whether true or not, and acted on an assumption, not a fact. And this is where they're messing up. All right, let's keep going. On March 23rd, Ultimate Girls Trip premiered. On episodes of Watch What Happens Live that aired during the run of the show, Cohen questioned guests about whether McSweeney was fun on the trip. One night this spring, Leah was the drinking game word. Whenever anybody mentioned McSweeney, Cohen instructed viewers to take a drink. Okay, that's fine. Who cares? Whatever. Also, what's problematic about Leah is because you were not cast for Roni Legacy, therefore you did a lawsuit. But it seems as though if you were cast for Roni Legacy, you would have happily gone back to the franchise and to the show. That's like a Nene. Because you're no longer being cast for shows, now you want to do a lawsuit. I personally think Nene's lawsuit had more credibility than Leah's, but it's just the timing of the situation. Because I'm no longer in favor, because I'm no longer being cast, now I want to do a lawsuit. Where for me, it would be, I'm doing a lawsuit because this happened and there's no way I'm putting myself back in that situation. But after spending 8 days in a psychiatric ward, you decide that you're going to go right back to the same place for $250,000. That's on you, boo-boo. That was a choice you made for the money. And honestly, I'm not mad at it. I would take the money too. Hello, anybody says they wouldn't take $250,000 to spend a week in Thailand must be like a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not knocking her for that. I'm knocking for this sort of like, you know, retrospective anger and all of this stuff. Because I guarantee you, if Bravo said, Leah, we'll have you back for the reboot, we'll have you back for Legacy, Leah would be right there on Roni right now without any type of lawsuit. And I also pretty much guarantee that if Bravo said, Nene will give you your own spinoff, Nene will bring you back on the franchise, Nene also would not have filed her lawsuit. She would have been right on her little spinoff. She would have been right on Roa. But I do think Nene's lawsuit had merits. I do think what she said was true. But I think the only reason why she said it was because she was no longer in favor. Whereas Leah, I think, is is a stretch. I think she's making stuff up or exaggerating because she's pissed that she got fired. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Whew, this is a doozy, you guys. This is a doozy. Problem drinking isn't the only problem. That was immediately clear to Williams, a lawyer and TV host who in 2021 became the first Black cast member on Roni. Many other cities had featured Black housewives, though casts at that point were largely segregated by race. Beverly Hills, New York, Dallas, New Jersey, and Orange County were mostly Black, or were mostly white, I'm sorry. Atlanta and Potomac, mostly Black. A virtual education session before filming season 13 covered topics including, quote, Black women, how Black women are treated in larger society and the Black community. Microaggressions, what are they? How do you recognize them? Lexicon, appropriate versus harmful offensive language, and missteps. What to do when you say something offensive. How do you move forward in that relationship? Williams, McSweeney, Morgan, Singer, and De Lesseps were all on the call, as well as an NBC Universal Communications executive, a Bravo publicist, and 2 representatives from a racial justice organization. Williams had never previously met Morgan or Singer. Before the 1-hour session officially began, according to McSweeney and Williams, Morgan commented on the natural hair of Black women leading the session. Williams, 40, interrupted the meeting as a cover your butt move. She says it mostly focused on the kinds of things cast members should avoid saying, like the racist trope that Black fathers are not present for their children. What if they don't have a father? Why can't I say that? Singer said during the meeting, according to Williams. Most of them don't. The Roni publicist, who's also Black, told Singer that she has a father, but Singer said she'd read a study that confirmed that most Black children do not. McSweeney corroborates Williams' account. The training included open dialogue, Singer said to Vanity Fair. In that spirit, I asked a question about a statistic I had read about single-parent households, where children with single-parent households were statistically less likely to succeed than 2-parent households. Later, while filming a scene that did air, De Lesseps and Singer expressed on camera their squeamishness around the words such as D-I, K, which they attributed to their backgrounds as church-going and conservative. Williams said that she had no discomfort with sexual language, noting that she was the most educated person at the table, with a BA and a JD. De Lesseps, who is a high school graduate and licensed nurse, said, I don't like the way you talk. When Singer also got upset, Williams said, your white fragility is killing me right now, then had to explain the term. De Lesseps called Williams an angry woman, which Williams understood implicitly as an angry Black woman. I never referred to your color, De Lesseps said. Williams left, Singer stayed behind. The scene that viewers saw ended there, but the emotional momentum continued. One of the people who remained told Vanity Fair, Ramona slammed her hands on the table. She goes, this is why we didn't need Black people on the show. This is going to ruin our show. Singer emailed Vanity Fair, this is absolutely did not happen. In fact, I supported adding the diverse cast members well before Ebony was added. The hot sheet went out several days later to a group that included Cohen and other NBC executives. It did not note, however, that Singer allegedly said the show didn't need Black people. On October 24th, 2022, Cohen responded via email, these are incredible reads and will be amazing episodes. The fact that this particular journey through white fragility ends with Ramona DMing Bryan Cranston is next level. Okay. All right, a couple of things. One, yikes. Do I believe Ramona said, this is why we don't need Black people on the show? In my personal opinion, yes, I believe she said it. I do. I think she said it. I do believe she said it. Now, when it comes to Luann, maybe I'm naive, but I personally did not think that Luann was calling Ebony an angry Black woman. That's not the way I took it. However, I understand how Ebony experienced it, particularly in that situation. And so I do think that there is something to be said about having the conversation around when you say certain things to certain people, this is how that person experiences it, whether it's your intent or not, right? And that's the conversation that they had and how they like dealt with all of that, right? So I get that there. I actually think Luann was intimidated by Ebony. And when Ebony said, I'm the most educated person here, I think because Luann, like they said, went to high school and has a nursing degree, which is fine and admirable. There is literally nothing wrong with any of it. I think Luann was insecure about her own level of education. Because Ebony is intimidating. She's beautiful, she's educated, she's successful. That is also an intimidating situation. I think it does get sticky when you're in a room or in a situation with all white people and you're called angry as a woman. I do understand how Ebony felt, but I don't think that Luann was calling her an angry Black woman in that trope, right? But I do think that conversation is needed to be had. Understanding what's a microaggression, understanding what is offensive to certain groups and what isn't, right? The same way Luann was offended about her education. Somebody else wouldn't take offense to that. If somebody said at the table, I'm the most educated person here, I'd be like, okay, cool, good for you, degrees. Let's call Wendy Osepo, okay, degrees. I wouldn't take offense to that because I don't have a lived experience of where that has hurt me or there's an insecurity or there's a trauma there. Do you see what I'm saying? Also, I feel like, and I don't mean to compare Black women because I also am tired of that. Let's compare Black women across the board, right? I'm tired of that too. But I don't know how else to make the point without doing that, but I want it to be transparent. I also think it's a chemistry fit. I think the way that they brought in Leah to be, young and cool on Roni, that chemistry fit was not a fit because she did not fit with the ladies. So that was a flop. Ebony, I also don't think was a chemistry fit for this particular group. And I hope she wasn't brought on as just like, oh, it's, we're in the 2020 now, 2021, everything going on in the world. We need to cast a Black person. It needs to be a token, just to get diversity's sake on the show. Whereas I don't think that Ebony was a chemistry fit for this particular groups of ladies. Not because Ebony is Black, but because of Ebony's personality, I don't think she was a chemistry fit. I think there could have been tons of Black women who would have been a chemistry fit. Very similar to, conversely, to prove the point, think about Beverly Hills. I think Garcelle is a great fit for Beverly Hills, not because she's a Black token, but because of her personality. She's a fan fave. She's one of the queens. She has the diamonds, baby. We are here for Garcelle. And she is also within a group of all white women in a very white space. And she's talked about what it has felt like to be the only Black woman within a white space. She brought up about how Kyle was like, oh, you didn't pay your charity bill. And, and also how she was saying how she felt she had to hold back. So she didn't get called, quote, the angry Black woman, the aggressive Black woman. She's talked about that in those spaces, right? And those have been great conversations. But I think the reason why Garcelle fits isn't because she's Black, but because of who Garcelle is, her personality. So I think when people are casting for race, it doesn't work. They need to cast for chemistry. And that is what works, right? And again, I'm surprised how much I'm not defending production per se, but I'm surprised at how much I'm understanding production's perspective, because I see that this article or, Ebony and Leah and, all of them are trying to say they had we want to cover our butt session with talking about diversity and all that stuff. I'm like, don't be damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. Because if we're really going to clean up the racism in this country, if we're really going to clean up what's going on, we have to start somewhere. We have to start with these conversations. We have to start with open dialogue. We have to start with a white woman saying, well, what if the Black person doesn't have a father? What does that mean? And instead of saying, oh, she's so racist, say, hey, let me actually educate you on why that is racist, on why that is wrong, on why that is a trope, on why that isn't true, on why that is hurtful, right? So to me, I'm not side-eyeing production and NBC for having that type of conversation. I'm like, okay, great. They're opening up the dialogue. You know, it can't be damned if you do, damned if you don't. And if they didn't have that conversation, that, whatever they called it, diversity hour, whatever they were calling it with everyone, then it would have been like, there was no sensitivity training. There was no racial sensitivity training. They never even talked about it. I am all for, let's open up the dialogue and have the hard conversations where people can feel comfortable saying, well, this is a stereotype, I believe. This is something I heard about Black people or white people or gay people or Hispanic people, where they can feel safe that they're not going to be canceled or judged for saying these things. Because a big reason why we still have so much hate in this country and world is because we're not having those hard conversations. Because people are saying these things in private, where they got these ideas from, because they're too afraid to say it in public. And it's only in the light that they can learn the truth about things and the truth about people and the truth about race and gender and all of that stuff. So again, I'm confused as to what point they're making with this. And Ramona is a 70-year-old something white woman who, of course, has probably a lot of very racist beliefs that she holds. And the only way she's not going to hold them is through talking about it. Now, I'm not saying that her calling someone the N-word is okay. Absolutely not. I'm not defending that at all. These are two very separate conversations. There is never an excuse for calling somebody an N-word, ever. Point blank, period, full stop. But talking about certain stereotypes and racial profilings that you have held about a community and saying, well, listen, this is what I was taught. Let's talk about it, I think is progress, right? That's just sort of how I feel about it. But let me know what you guys think. And I'm not defending Ramona at all. All I am saying is that we need to start somewhere to have these conversations. All right. That season, Singer also allegedly told a Black woman staffer, there's so many of you guys here now. Please don't change your hair, as I'm not going to be able to remember anybody's names. Singer says that was a kind of a thing she commonly did. It was a strictly commentary on my inability to remember names. As an example, just last week, I saw a photo with me and Travis Kelce from 2016 on Watch What Happens Live, and I thought he was Jax Taylor. She emailed Vanity Fair, referring to a Vanderpump Rules cast member. According to two people familiar with production, Singer exclaimed, there's so many Black chicks. Singer denies saying this. The footage that aired in the season shows her using the phrase Black chicks, right? Again, when it comes to this, do I think she said it? Yeah, there's footage of it, right? I totally 100% think she said it. Now, for this particular comment, again, I think it could be better utilized of, well, let's talk about why that's a very effed up thing to say. Why that's a very hateful thing to say. Why that's a very hurtful thing to say. Why that's a thing that dehumanizes Black women, right? Don't change your hair, I won't be able to recognize you. Oh my God, there's all these Black chicks. Those are horrible things to say, right? But those could be moments for, well, let's tackle those things. Because if you're going to try and tackle diversity by just checking a box by adding a Black cast members, that's not going to do the job. It's having the tough conversations without villainizing the person, right? So for Ramona to say that, which is extremely hurtful, extremely dehumanizing to say to someone, don't change your hair, I won't be able to recognize you, all of that. It's horrible to say. But if they actually addressed it in a meaningful way, then they would actually be making progress. Then it would be like, okay, I get it. Let's try to have these conversations, right? I think that there's been a lot of missteps and missed opportunities here. And I'm not defending Ramona Singer. I want to say that to the cows come home. This is not a defense of her, because I do think she said some extremely racial things. And you know what I'm saying? So I'm not defending her. I'm just discussing ways that it could have gone better for everyone involved. Darian Edmondson Harrington, before she married, Darian, was a senior producer on season 13, her first Bravo production. No one ever said officially I was hired, but Ebony was the first Black talent that was brought on for New York, Edmondson told Vanity Fair. I think that they were specifically looking for a Black female producer. A source involved with production says new producers are typically introduced to the cast, but that didn't happen with the new Black hires on Roni. If the cast is not being told from the executives, these people are here to do this X job, that person said. The cast is going to make up their minds who they talk to and who they don't talk to. Edmondson says she wasn't able to produce Morgan, De Lesseps, or Singer. They simply didn't respond to her texts or calls. So it seemed unusual when Singer spoke to her after a scene filmed on November 6th of 2020 in Singer's home. Here is how the hot sheet described the conversation. Ramona says she doesn't want to talk about race, religion, or creed. Ramona tries to change the subject again, asking about who Ebony is dating. She asks Ebony if the guy is Black, white, or what. Ebony says she thought Ramona didn't want to talk about color. Ramona says, now I have to watch what I'm saying to you. I feel like whatever I say is wrong. A person who sees the hot sheets said that while they don't recall that one specifically, they would not dispute it. Cannot confirm nor deny. After this scene, Williams left. Edmondson remained, she says, at Ward and Paparazzo's instruction. A source familiar with production denies Paparazzo asked her to stay. Singer told Edmondson that her interaction with Williams reminded her of when Jewish colleagues used a Catholic slur with her when she was a young woman and called her a shishka, a Yiddish term for a non-Jewish woman. Edmondson hadn't heard the word before and later had to ask her mother what it was. According to Edmondson, she said, Ramona, I have no idea what you're talking about, to which Singer said, oh, it's literally like somebody calling you a N-word. Singer says she never said the N-word and that this account is a misrepresentation. I did describe an incident where I was called a shishka while working in college, she wrote, but I did not compare the two experiences. Edmondson wrapped up the conversation without addressing what Singer had just said and says Singer thanked her, but she discussed the moment with a shocked colleague and sent her husband and friend texts about what happened, which Vanity Fair has reviewed. Then Edmondson started crying. I should have said something, she says. She told herself, Ebony's fighting this fight this season. Okay, side note. I believe the producer. Why would the producer make this up? To what goal would the producer make up that Ramona Singer said this? So she could get fired and blacklisted and never work again because she's exposing what happened? I believe the producer 100%. I also believe the producer when she said that Luann and Sonia and Ramona did not respect her and did not return her calls and did not take direction from her. I believe that 100%. Do I think it was because she was Black? Probably on a subconscious level, yes. Do I think it's because they thought that she wasn't an important enough producer? Yes. As we know, certain housewives have their favorite producers and producers have their favorites. And the fact that this woman was Black, the fact that she seemingly seems to be younger, and also that she was new, do I think they disrespected her? 100%. Do I believe what she said Ramona said? 100%. 100%. I do. I think she's telling the truth. She says she talked to Ward and Paparazzo about it that night. They said, I'm so sorry that happened to you. According to multiple people who worked on season 13, other production members went to Warner Brothers Discovery HR about Singer's comments throughout the season. Edmondson endeavored to make herself feel better. At least she's getting comfortable around me, was how she rationalized Singer easy use of the N-word. I always felt like Darian and I had a great relationship, Singer told Vanity Fair. Well, yeah, because she probably didn't know how to stand up to you. You know, I have personally been in situations where where the N-word has been used or something racist has been said. And as the Black person in the room, you feel shock, you feel stifled, you freeze. You don't really know how to respond. You don't really know how to push back. You don't really know how to speak up for yourself or how to deal with the situation, because we've been so conditioned that if we do say something, then, oh, now you're drama. Oh, angry Black woman. Oh, you're aggressive. Oh, you're being sensitive. You're just paranoid. Oh, blah, 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 blah. So I have personally been in situations where someone that I loved very dearly and considered a very dear friend said the N-word very casually. And I was the only Black person in the room, and I did not know how to respond. So I understand what this person is saying. So for Ramona to be so disconnected to reality, thinking she has a great relationship to this person, I'm sure in Ramona's delusional mind, she did think she had a great relationship with her because, one, she dismissed her and didn't respect her, and two, Edmondson didn't say anything to her, which is ridiculous. Now we're getting into the territory where I'm like, Bravo, NBC, production, y'all dirty. Y'all dirty. This is the territory where we're getting into. All the other stuff about, oh, drinking and Leah and blah, 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 blah. Like, miss me with all the other performative stuff. For me, it's what are the tangible moments where someone was clearly attacked or, racially discriminated against, or something racial happened, where someone was clearly, assaulted in a sexual way without their consent, or someone was clearly exploited, right? And also talk about money, how much money NBC, how much money Bravo and these production companies make, and how little the quote talent makes, right? No residuals and all that. For me, yes, get the union and the mental health. That is more of where I'm like, okay, they need to do better. But this other performative stuff, I'm like, miss me with it. Miss me. Okay. But on a different day of filming with Williams, Edmondson recalls, literally we broke down hysterically and cried in each other's arms, and I'd never seen in my life in a decade of working in TV either shown emotion like that with a cast member. Williams had tried to quit the show November 6th, the same day Singer allegedly used the N-word, but Williams didn't know about the incident at the time. On November 9th, Williams said that Ward, Paparazzo, and Shannon implored her to stay over a video call. Williams says they told her, listen, what you're giving us is exactly what we want. If we wanted a different Black woman, we know how to get them. Shannon suggested Williams bear the racial animus she was experiencing more lightly, as Williams recalls it, reminding her, Ebony, this show is a comedy. Producers deny that Williams tried to quit and that they asked her to stay, though someone with knowledge says a producer told Ebony and others generally that Real Housewives is partly comedic in nature. Viewers tend to see the show as an escape. Emails reviewed by Vanity Fair show Paparazzo, Ward, and Shannon had a Zoom call with Williams on November 9th. At the last dinner of the season at Singer's Hamptons home, a party planner hired by production sat at the table with raw cotton. According to some, it was supposed to look like snow. Once again, Williams had to provide context. Shed acknowledges the situation and said they addressed it immediately. But it wasn't until after the season began airing in 2021, almost a year later, that Williams heard Singer had been reported to Warner Brothers HR, and that it had been determined that Singer said she had difficulty telling Black crew members apart. Yikes. At that point, Williams requested a series of meetings with NBC Universal. During one meeting with NBCU executives and an outside lawyer, Williams said she was told an investigation into whether Singer had said the show didn't need Black people was, quote, inconclusive. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second. We'll get back to it. This is a thing. When it comes to Ebony, I personally did feel a little exhausted about Ebony teaching us about Black history, Black pride, every single episode. And what I mean by that is every single thing was like, Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman, and we're going to go to Harlem and everybody's going to have a Black History Month, tidbit. That did get to be taxing on me because as a Black woman, I live this. I know this. I just wanted to see Ebony being Ebony. I wanted to revel in her Black excellence as a woman, of just her existing. I wanted to see her having fun, kikiing, dating and shopping and, being the boss babe. I didn't need every single episode to be a Black History Month episode. I agree with it that way. I don't agree with it in saying you need to take things racially said against you more lightly. To me, these are two different things. Like again, I hate comparing Black woman to Black woman, but we have to do it in this context. I hate doing it. But like with Garcelle, Garcelle just shows up and she is Black excellence. She's just amazing. She's a moment. She's a beat. I love her. She's not doing Black History Month lessons every episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but she is a moment and we love her. And when she needs to address something that is racially charged, she addresses it in the moment and up front, and it gets dealt with. I think that was more of Ebony's misstep. I don't know if production told her that she needed to sort of be like the voice of the Black people on the show and all of this stuff, but she made it too heavy. But that's not to say that I think she should not have been vocal about situations that made her feel discriminated against or racial microaggressions or things like that. I'm not saying she had to pretend that was not happening to her when it was. That's not what I'm saying. So to me, these are two separate conversations. One is, Ebony, you needed to show up and just be you and have fun and do keep it light, but in general, not you can't be honest about somebody saying you're angry and how that makes you feel as a Black woman in this country. Those are two separate conversations going on, right? So there's that. Okay. William says someone on the call confirmed the company determined Singer had said the N-word, but William says the lawyer, who was not representing NBCU, tried to downplay the issue. To paraphrase, Singer didn't call Edmonton the N-word, she just said the N-word. Williams says that NBCU's chief diversity officer, who is biracial, was present. He told the lawyer, no, what we're not going to do is sit here and litigate the capacity in which the N-word was used in the presence of a Black woman. NBCU did not comment. Williams says, that was the only time I felt like anybody on the other side of this had any competency. Bingo, 100% agree, 100%. Because this is the thing. Anytime someone who is not Black says the N-word, it is wrong. In any context. Any context. That is my personal opinion. So for them to try to split metaphorical hairs that do not exist, she didn't call her one, she just said it. Just saying it is the problem. So I agree with this 100%. To do a comparison, right? Same exact thing with Erica Jane. Last season on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills at the reunion, when she was allegedly, because I think she was lying on Kathy in my personal opinion, remember she got up there and she was like, Kathy said, oh, he's an old F word, the homophobic slur. And the word just came off her tongue like it was gravy. And she said the whole word, the F word for it's a homophobic slur. That was also extremely problematic. Nobody gets to say that word. Just saying it is wrong, right? And I'm not comparing being, our, LGBTQIA community to the Black community. I'm not saying that our situations are the same, but we have similar hurdles, right? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I never would say the F word. I would never say that because saying it is wrong, and that's the problem. And the fact that she said it is the problem. So I agree with them on that. It's the mere fact that you said the word is problematic. All right. What I recognized, even in the midst of my own trauma, is I still had the most power of any Black person involved in this thing, Williams says. They are just young Black women trying to go to effing work. Edmondson had not been hired for a Bravo series since her one and only Roni season, which ended filming in 2021. For the first time in Housewives history, oh wait. Sorry guys, I lost my spot. It went crazy. One second. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, for the first time, oh my gosh. Okay, for the first time, sorry about that. For the first time in Housewives history, the reunion, which typically films about a month before the finale airs, was canceled. At the time, Bravo attributed this to scheduling challenges. Now, a source with knowledge says the reunion was put on hold during an investigation into Singer's conduct and ultimately never happened. Roni went off the air for almost 2 years. When it came back, it had a new cast and a legacy Ultimate Girls trip starring Singer, De Lesseps, and Morgan, helmed by Paparazzo, which filmed in St. Bart's in June of 2023. Shed produced both, as well as the Ultimate Girls Trip season that Singer filmed 3 months after Roni, season 13, wrapped. Someone familiar with production says, as soon as Shed became aware of concerns related to contact on Roni season 13 production, producers immediately reached out to the affected employees to make sure they were supported, and Shed hired an outside investigator to conduct a thorough and confidential investigation where issues were substantiated, appropriate corrective actions was taken. These measures were taken over 2 years before the casting of Ultimate Girls Trip St. Bart's Legacy. This is where production is full of crap. Full of crap. You knew what Ramona said, you knew what she did, and you still casted her. Production, you're dead wrong. Just say, yes, we knew she used the N-word, and we didn't care. Call a thing, because that's what it was. Don't talk about some impartial investigation. That's a bunch of bull. You knew what she said, and you didn't care. Okay. Sources differ on when the allegations of Singer's use of the N-word were communicated between the companies, which illustrates how complicated the processes and reporting chains can be on these shows. Why do they stay? It is a promotional machine unlike anything you can even buy, says Williams, who tried to develop her own show with Bravo after season 13. Money and clout, says McSweeney. See, now we're being honest. Now we're being honest. Money and clout. There you go. One housewife wonders who should be who she would be otherwise. Is it any wonder why we cling to it well past its expiration date? Frankel is one of the few examples of a Bravo star whose success transcends the network, and even she hasn't cleaved herself completely. Frankel quit the show, sold the cocktail division of her company Skinny Girl for a reported $100 million while filming a Bravo spinoff, returned, then quit again, then developed several more shows with Bravo. In 2022, she started a podcast about the Real Housewives called Rewives, distributed by iHeart Podcast. Frankel says that former Roni castmate and former best friend Jill Zarin's July 2023 appearance on her podcast is what prompted her to reevaluate her relationship with Bravo and reality TV generally. The truth about what came up on the podcast is, like everything in this story, complicated, and has been the subject of housewives infighting and proxy wars in Page 6 on Watch What Happens Live and among fans. Disclosure, I am one. On Just Be, Frankel's other podcast, Zarin revealed that she didn't know Frankel would be filmed attending the January 2018 funeral of Zarin's husband, Bobby. She wouldn't have looked like had she shown up, she said. Hand to God, should have Bobby turn in his grave. Frankel says she believed Zarin was aware. A source with production knowledge tells Vanity Fair that a spokesperson for Zarin indeed had reached out and invited filming at the funeral. Zarin supposedly also invited a crew to Shiva, but they declined. Zarin told Vanity Fair that her former publicist suggested asking if Shed wanted to film the funeral. Bobby had loved being a house husband, or Zarin was a cast member from from 2008 to 2011, Zarin agreed. It's an honor for Bobby to be honored on a national television and be respected, she says. The emails went back and forth, including with a suggestion for a made-for-TV Shiva, but Zarin said her ultimate understanding was that there would not be camera present outside the service. Zarin says she's not upset that production came afterward. What she calls an effing ambush was that she wasn't prepared or paid for what became a huge, heavily promoted Bravo moment, her long-awaited televised reconciliation with Frankel, her estranged best friend. Zarin says she wouldn't have asked to be compensated if they had documented Bobby's memorial because she considered that a tribute to him. Otherwise, she said she would have said, write me a check for $100K and put it into the memorial fund. She also wasn't happy when Cohen later indicated Zarin was lying about knowing it would be filmed. Yet, even after all of this, Zarin still wanted to be on Bravo. Again, this goes back to what I was saying. They get exploited and manipulated and duped, but yet they're addicted. I think that these people are addicted to the money. They're addicted to the quote fame. They're addicted to the cameras. They're addicted to it, In 2021, she started Ultimate Girls Trip Season 2, which was produced by Shed, the production company Zarin says crashed Bobby's funeral. I want to vomit at how I kissed Andy's butt to come back, Zarin says now. She says she was in talks to join Legacy Cast, but the negotiation ended because Bravo was offering less money than Zarin felt she deserved. Zarin, whatever. On July 21st, Frankel posted a now infamous TikTok in which she grapples with assailing a grieving widow for TV and calls for a reality reckoning. It got a lot of pickup, Frankel says now. It seemed fairly obvious to me. Then I said, how am I going to go further with this? I can't just talk and not do something. In addition to her stated goal of securing future rights for cast and crew with input from SAG-AFTRA, Frankel says she's planning to meet with network and streaming executives about improving conditions. About improving conditions on reality productions. The housewife quandary sounds a bit like problem gambling, and the house always wins, which Bravo reminds cast members. People are going to like you because we edited you well, so don't worry, McSweeney says Cohen told her before her first season premiered. We literally are walking into a casino thinking we're going to change families' lives, make a fortune, and ride off into the sunset, one housewife says. But if you were, say, the most successful housewife ever, you would not be able to chart it without charting also absolute emotional destruction, public humiliation, divorce, death, crime, prison, shame, misogyny, and just an onslaught of pure hate. This is the thing. Bethany, the reason why I think Bethany has gotten on board with this is because Bethany is bored and she misses being in the limelight. That's really what I think, because she has the money. She has oodles and oodles and oodles of money, so it's not about money. And I also don't think it's really about righting these wrongs. I think Bethany needed a project, and I think Bethany wanted to stay relevant. Her shows were not landing. That's why I think she did the podcast about the Housewives, because she knew that was a draw. Sorry, 1 second. I've been talking for like 2 hours. Because she knew that was like a draw. Do you know what I mean? But I think this is kind of for attention. I think this is sort of attention-seeking behavior on her part. I really do. But you know what? Someone's got to do it. So, hey. Bravo and its partners who make these shows are employers at the end of the day. Based on documents shared with Vanity Fair, a contract might state that cast members will be paid only for the episodes in which they appear, which may be fewer than the number they film. However, their obligations, including promotion and filming, continue for the duration of the contract. Outside unscripted work and press opportunities may be subject to approval requirements. See, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. This is the stuff I think needs to be addressed. How much Bravo is pimping them and exploiting them. If you have to work, you should be paid for that work, in my opinion, whether they aired or not, because you worked. You know what I mean? If I go to a factory job and I'm, canning things together, whether or not the warehouse sells the cans, I should be paid for canning the cans. So I agree there needs to be some type of conversation about, being compensated for the work you do, making more safer work environments, not being exploited, and all of that stuff. That I agree with. There are non-disclosure agreements as well as non-disparagement agreements, which Frankel has railed against. Confidentiality clauses are standard practice in reality programming to prevent disclosure of storylines prior to air, the network wrote in a statement to Variety. Any current or former cast or crew is free to discuss and disclose any allegedly unlawful acts in the workplace, such as harassment or discrimination or any other conduct that they have reason to believe is inappropriate. Okay, they're lying with that one. I don't think they have non-disclosures agreements because they're worried about storyline leaking. We know all the storylines months in advance because we have a thing called TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, Page 6, Radar Online, Reality Blurb, and the Housewives themselves. We already know all of the storylines. That's why we were talking about Mauricio and Kyle splitting up for months, and Beverly Hills just aired. That's not true. You only have an NDA because you're trying to hide something. You see what I'm saying? They're not worried about storylines. Okay. And then there's a waiver of privacy clause. 2 Warner Brother contracts with Bravo talent viewed by Vanity Fair state the appearance, actions, sounds, and statements of artists and others, and the information related or revealed thereby may be of personal, private, surprising, defamatory, disparaging, embarrassing, offensive, or in otherwise unfavorable or injurious nature, and may be factual or fictional, and may expose artists to public ridicule, humiliation, or condemnation, and may portray artists in a false light. So basically that means they have the right to lie on you. They have the right to lie on you. That's what that says. We can lie on you and you can't do anything about it. That's what that says. When Frankel first read her contract, she decided, I can navigate this. I'm just a different breed. She also says, I was a prostitute at the highest rate possible and was aware that there was a transaction that was happening and that I was going to benefit from it. Hey, at least she's being honest with that one. Bravo has made adjustments based on information that leaked from troubled productions. The next Ultimate Girls trip to air will be Shannon and Paparozzo's Legacy Edition. It switched slots with what was supposed to be the 4th season, which filmed in Morocco months before Legacy. In January of 2023, People published a story about cast member Brandi Glanville allegedly kissing co-star Caroline Manzo multiple times throughout the evening without her consent during filming. The following month, Page 6 reported that on the same night, Glanville allegedly pinned Carolyn against the wall and put her hands on Carolyn's breast area and lady part area. During a March interview, Manzo, who has not publicly made any accusations, said, I can't say much, only because it's not good for my headspace. I would imagine it would unfold on the series when it airs, and there'll be a lot to be said about it then. Through her attorney, Derek Smith, she declined to comment to Vanity Fair. The same month, Glanville's attorney sent Warner Brothers a letter that read, the entire incident was comprised of some flirtatious conduct and kissing between Ms. Mando and Ms. Glanville, and all of it was absolutely mutual and consensual, and called for it to release all footage. Glanville says she and Manzo were never alone, and no one from production stepped in at any point. Glanville had behaved similarly on previous season of Ultimate Girls Trip. Glanville says NBCU executives sent positive feedback to the cast. Cast member Phaedra Parks told Vanity Fair she was sober that evening and observed Glanville and Manzo's interaction as nothing short of a modern-day Harlequin romance. Love was winning. You're not in your right mind and you want to give them good TV, says Glanville. The whole point of these shows is to get us unhinged. If there was an issue or situation where someone was uncomfortable in Morocco, no one in production or the crew or cast intervened in the moment. I'm going to stop on this one. Listen, Brandi, stop lying. I believe Caroline Manzo on this. I do think that Brandi was inappropriate. I think she was blacked out. I think she was kissing and touching her without her consent. And it also came out that, what's her name? Oh, I forget what her name is. The redhead from Roni from a long time ago. She was there and she intervened and she tried to unlock the door and step between them. And also the next day, production asked Brandi Glanville to leave. You know, Caroline left on her own accord. But I think there is something to be said about this. The production company that did Ultimate Girls Trip Morocco, which is the season of Brandi and Caroline Manzo, is a different production company that did Ultimate Girls Trip Legacy with Sonia and all of them. That is, and is also a different, and is the same production company that did the other Ultimate Girls Trip that Brandi was on. So basically, one production company, the Shed Media one with Shannon and Paparazzo one, basically was the one that said, we'll take Ramona back, even though she said the N-word. We're going to praise Brandi for getting drunk and being sexually, all over the place. It was a different production company that said, Brandi, what you did was wrong and you need to go home. So that right there shows you the difference between a production company that is taking care of talent and a production company that is not. Because the production company that Brandi got in trouble with is a different production company that did the other Ultimate Girls trips. Glanville says she heard nothing until she started posting about Bravo and Ultimate Girls Trip on social media while she was hospitalized, full information in October, at which point she got a text from Barry Goldstein, whom she had never heard of. Remember, Barry Goldstein is supposed to be the mental health person, telling her he was a psychologist who wanted her to call her for a check-in. Bravo recently announced the season will premiere in 2024, though a source with knowledge of executive decisions says the network is still discussing whether it will still air at all. So if Bravo is willing to throw away an entire season, something went down. Caroline has refused to speak publicly. Something went down. Brandi was fired and told to leave. Something went down. You're not telling me that Bravo and NBC is going to lose all of the money they spent on an entire season if nothing went down, when they are willing to work with people who are criminals, alcoholics, racist, none of that stopped a season. Assaults, none of that stopped a season, but this did. What's really good? On October 20th, Manzo's lawyer filed suit on behalf of Marco Vega against NBCU, Bravo, Peacock, Warner Brothers, Shed, and Forest Productions, a subsidiary of Shed. Vega, who was an on-screen butler on Ultimate Girls Trip Arc, alleges Granville sexually harassed him and that Parks smacked his bottom. Defendants allowed, condoned, and even encouraged Miss Glanville's sexually aggressive and offensive conduct on others on the sets, the suit says. Warner Brothers does not comment on pending litigation. Okay, the article then goes on to talk about other stuff, but it is so long, and I've been talking for 2 hours. We are going to stop it there. I'm going to drop the link in case anybody wants to come up and help me give my little voice a break. And then I'm also going to go over some of your Candy Cane questions and comments. But that is the bulk of the Vanity Fair situation with Bravo, with NBC, with all of that stuff going on. I may do a part 2 to get the second half or the remaining part of it, but that was the bulk of it. So let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box.